Great stuff. Thanks, Andy. Gareth, good to see you. I wanted to ask you first about Trent Alexander-Arnold, 22-year-old player, and it strikes me he's had an awful lot to deal with of late. And after the euphoria of being called up, and then literally the next day to suffer an injury like that, really hard for him to take. How's he doing?
Well, it's heartbreaking, really. For any player to get to the eve of a major tournament, be named in the squad, and then miss out through injury is, you know how rare these opportunities are. And even though he's a young player who is going to have those opportunities again, I firmly believe that. That's a really difficult moment, for him especially. It's a big disappointment for us, of course, as well. But you can't help but first and foremost feel for Trent in this situation. The one thing I was pleased about in that immediately after the game, I didn't like the look of the injury. At least it sounds as though he should be fine for pre-season and for next season. So, but that is a small. That is a very small positive in the situation he is. So, of course, he was very upset, bitterly disappointed. In those moments, everybody's thinking about him.
On moving straight on from it, though, I mean, we know you're not going to make a decision until after the game tomorrow night, at some point next week. You've got a bit of time. But what are your thoughts about replacing him? Will it definitely be a defender?
Well, we want to see how we get through tomorrow's game as well, be able to assess everything, and then we'll make a decision from then. So there isn't a rush. I think it's important to have time to consider everything. We're obviously talking about that as a coaching staff, but we know more after tomorrow's game on where everybody is physically, whether there's any more issues, and it's important we get the positional balance right for the whole squad.
In terms of the players that have been involved in the European finals, you've got the full squad here now. But do you sense there's two very different sets of emotions among the winners and losers? You said before that you feared that might be the case. Have you seen that?
They've been excellent, I have to say. The training sessions, all of the players have picked up immediately. There doesn't seem to be any overhang at all. The group is in together socially. You can see it at dinner. All have enjoyed getting back with their England colleagues, basically. So, as far as we're concerned, if you didn't know those games had taken place and you weren't specifically looking for things, then I genuinely don't think you would know any different.
The key players for you, all of those that have been involved in the European finals, will any of them be involved in this final warm-up game?
Well, more likely that the boys that were involved in the Europa League final, they've been with us a bit longer. The others reported a bit later. I don't think the training periodisation would be right to put them into Sunday's game.
Can I ask about Harry Maguire? Obviously, we saw training this morning. He wasn't training with the rest of the group. Is there a danger that he won't be able to play any part in this tournament?
Well, with any injury, it's impossible to predict 100%. The progress, our medical team are pleased with his progress, and particularly over the last couple of days. So we know there is always that risk, but all of the guide is that he should be available. And it's a case of when he can slot back into training with the group and how quickly we can progress him. But of course, there is always that risk with any injury that you only have to have one minor setback, and 2 or 3 days here and there really affects those timelines. So as I've said all along, I'm very realistic about that, and we've picked a squad on the basis that if we didn't have him, we've got the players to come in, and if he's able to be fit and available, then that's a bonus for us.
It was good to see Jordan Henderson out there training. How's his recovery coming along? And after that setback he had earlier in the week, how much game time realistically do you think you can get out of him against Romania?
Well, again, the plan, as it was on Wednesday, will be that he's involved in the game. So he's the last 2-3 days training have been a lot more positive for him. I think the confidence of having a scan that showed no issues has helped him to push forward with his rehabilitation and with his training. So he's been visibly happier within himself, I think, and that's a positive sign.
Thanks, Gareth. If I can ask a couple to Kalvin alongside you, if that's okay. Kalvin, good to see you. We've just been talking about Trent Alexander-Arnold there having to withdraw. I just wonder whether you had a bit of a panic yourself in the closing moments of that last game of the season when you had that shoulder injury. It looked nasty, and I wondered whether you feared that might be your tournament over right there and then.
Obviously it wasn't a great injury. Not a good way to end the season as well, but I dislocated my shoulder, and obviously I was very fearful that I wouldn't be involved in the camp and in the tournament, and they're the first emotions that come to your head as soon as you do it. But I think obviously I've recovered well, and my shoulder feels fine now, so I'm just ready and raring to get going.
Obviously, on a very serious note, you were sitting near us in the stands when some of the fans at the Riverside started booing as your teammates took a knee. How did you feel about that at the time?
Confused and disappointed. I think I was just happy that the boos got cancelled out by the fans cheering in the end. I don't think it's a great situation, especially for us players. All we can do is just focus on the game and speak about it afterwards. And I think the lads and the team spoke about it together, and we came up with the conclusion that regardless of what goes on around, we're still gonna participate in the kneeling, and I think that's a great idea.
Gareth, can I ask a similar question to you, if that's okay? Are you worried that this might persist throughout the tournament? It's you had such a positive atmosphere that you engendered between the squad and the fans at the last World Cup. Do you have a fear that might be different this time round if this sort of booing persists?
Well, the first thing is that we are collectively really disappointed that it happened. I think you have to put yourself in the shoes of a young England player about to represent his country, and because we're all trying to support, move for equality, move for supporting our own teammates, some of the experiences they have been through in their lives. Some people decide to boo. I think those people should put themselves in the shoes of those young players and how that must feel. And if that was their children, if they're old enough to have children, how would they feel about their kids being in that sort of situation? So the most important thing for our players is to know that we are totally united on it. We're totally committed to supporting each other, supporting the team. We feel that more than ever, determined to take the knee through this tournament. We accept that there might be an adverse reaction, and we're just going to ignore that and move forward. I think the players are sick of talking about the consequences of should they, shouldn't they. They've had enough, really. As far as I'm concerned, they're not going to take more questions on this through the tournament. If it happens, it happens. They're very clear. Their voices have been heard loud and clear. They're making their stand, but they want to talk about the football, and they want the focus to be on the football. We had a productive meeting with a group of the players yesterday, and we enlarged that to the wider group today. But there are other things that we need to spend our time on, and the players want to spend their time on. And that's not that they're dismissing the importance of this. They know the power of their voices. They know the fact that they can make a difference. But they do at this moment want the talk to be about their football, and to be able to concentrate on their football and use the impact of their voice at more appropriate times when they feel they can make a difference. And today we can, because of what happened. I think the fact that we're going to keep going is impactful. But how many times have we been sitting here over the last 2 years discussing these areas? So I must never be allowed to be tired of doing that, because I don't have the right to be tired of doing it. When I haven't lived the life that my players have and had to experience the things they had, it saddens me that they're so hardened to it that they're almost dismissive. And that's something that in our country we should all reflect on, I think.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, we'll open up the floor to questions, and we'll start with one from our visitors tomorrow night, Adrian Costiou from Pro TV.
Thanks. Gareth, I wanted to ask you, good afternoon. I wanted to ask you that, of course, Riverside is a very important place for you, both as a player and as a manager. I wanted to ask you about a special game that you played as a player against Romanian opposition, Steaua Bucharest, in 2006 in the UEFA Cup semifinals. The Romanian manager was your opponent on the pitch that time. How did you feel in that moment, and what do you remember from that game?
Well, it was an amazing cup run for us. You know, for a club like Middlesbrough to make a European final was incredible, really. That particular game, I didn't contribute very much. I got injured after about 20 minutes, so I can't claim to have been the difference. But we knew that Steaua Bucharest have a fantastic European pedigree, so we knew that it was a good level of opponent. And I know that Romanian football is starting to rejuvenate again. You know, our under-21s had a very tough game in the finals a couple of years ago. I know some of the team tomorrow were involved in that game, and it's a really good test for our players tomorrow.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Alex Howell from BBC Sport.
Hi, Gareth.
Hi, Alex.
Ask a question about Jadon Sancho. I know he missed a game the other night through illness. How is he? And do you think he's kind of gone under the radar coming into this squad?
Well, he's fine. He's recovered from his illness, and he's trained the last 3 days, so he looks good to be involved tomorrow. I mean, I think in some areas maybe he is under the radar, but then I think the real sort of hardcore of football fans know what he's been capable of, what his performances have been like for Dortmund in particular. He's a very exciting talent. We've got a lot of good attacking players, and Jadon is obviously there's a lot of competition in that area of the pitch, but he's finished the season well. I think it's been a difficult year for him. He was obviously looked as though he might be on the move last summer, and I think for a young player to go through that experience is quite tough. So he had to cope with that, had to deal with that, and then got into a good rhythm of form around Christmas and just after the break, and then picked up the injury. So his season has been disrupted, but he's finished it well.
And you mentioned the high standard of set piece taking in training. It looked really good the other night. Were you impressed with it? And you've got even more set piece takers coming into the squad now with the other players joining up.
Yeah, it's such an important facet of the game, and it's an area we pay a lot of attention to, and we think we should. I think more and more you see every big match often comes down to set plays at either end. So we're fortunate that we've got a lot of players who can deliver really consistently, and sometimes the set plays don't have to be overcomplicated, but if the delivery is no good, then none of those planned moves get off the ground. And we've got that consistency of delivery from 7 or 8 different players, and that's a real asset for us.
Thanks, Alex. Next we'll go to Chris Scudder from ITV News. Sorry, Chris, you're on mute.
That's unmuted. Hi, Gareth. How you doing?
Hi, Chris.
Hope you're well. Just want to raise what Rob mentioned, though. The fact you've had a meeting about the taking of the knee. Is there a concern that it's disrupting preparations?
No, I think the only reason I called the meeting was that I want to be able to represent the players correctly when I speak about it. And I was concerned that what happened could affect young players in particular when it happened immediately before the kickoff. I'd have been confused, and I'd have been, I don't know how I would have reacted as a young player. But in essence, people are booing their own team. I don't really understand that. If you don't agree with the situation, then perhaps you don't have to applaud or you don't have to do anything. But to boo your own team is a very strange response in my mind. So I wanted to gauge that the players were happy to continue, and I think there's an acceptance that this gesture, if you like, is waning in its impact because we've been going now for a season. But I think ahead of a European Championship where the games are going around Europe, around the world, that moment just before the kickoff, which will be shown everywhere, will have a significant impact. And if we can affect only a handful of people, then we've made the world better for others. And I think we'll affect more than a handful of people, and for that reason it's worth us continuing.
So you are going to continue. You did say that you thought there might be an adverse reaction. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think we have to accept that there could be elements of the crowd that boo. That would be hugely disappointing for us, but we're prepared to go through that. So whatever happens, we're adamant that that's the stance we're going to take through the tournament. And if it happens in future matches, we won't be discussing it after, because we don't want to give more oxygen to those people, really.
Thanks, Chris. Next we'll go to Theo Squires from the Liverpool Echo.
Hi, Gareth. Just wanted to ask you about the Everton players in the squad. Obviously, Carlo Ancelotti left the club in midweek. It's an unsettling time for any player, never mind on the eve of an international tournament. I was wondering how they were feeling in the camp, if they'd spoken to you about it or if you'd spoken to them.
I've had brief conversations, but yeah, I think they were surprised because I don't think anybody foresaw that happening. But players are very resilient. They understand that's the environment they're in. Managers change constantly, and they'll be interested to follow and see who comes in. And of course they won't know the full implications of that until those decisions are made and they're back with their clubs. But at the moment they're all totally focused on the situation with us and having a great summer.
Thanks, Theo. Next we go Tyrone Marshall from the Manchester Evening News.
Hi, Gareth.
Hi, Tyrone.
I just want to ask about Marcus Rashford and how he's looking, really. He's played through 2 injuries this year. He's played something like close to 70 games in 12 months, I think. Just how is he looking, and are you concerned about that workload on what is still a fairly young player who hasn't had much of a break since he was sort of 18, really?
He looks very bright, I have to say. I think he had value from the time off we were able to give him after the European final. That was, of course, a huge disappointment for him not to win the trophy. But I think for all of the players, that psychological freshness of having a short period off has been beneficial. So he's been able to move on from that moment, and I think has enjoyed being in our environment again, and he's trained really well.
Thanks, Tyrone. Next, Joe Urquhart from the Yorkshire Post.
Hi, just one for Kalvin, if that's all right. A huge good luck, obviously, this summer from the Yorkshire Evening Post to you. How excited are you to be sort of representing Leeds this summer at a major finals? It's been a heck of a 12 months for you.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Obviously, when I first got told that I was going to be in the squad, the initial reaction was overwhelmed. I was very, proud, and even, the messages on social media from Leeds fans, family, and not even just Leeds fans from, other clubs. It's really nice. It's a really nice feeling, and like I said, I'm very proud to be in the squad.
Thanks, Joe. We'll take another question from our visitors tomorrow night with Maxim from Telecom Sports. Andrew, are you there? Okay, now we'll move on to Dom Smith from englandfootball.org.
Thanks. Hi, Gareth.
Hi, Dom.
Sorry.
Sorry, Anna. We'll just take Dom's question and we'll come back to you next.
Okay.
Carry on, Dom.
Thanks. First question for Gareth, and then just a quick one for Kalvin, if possible. First of all, Gareth, I think a lot of people believe that the shortcomings against Croatia 3 years ago maybe came in with a lack of control in midfield. Obviously, you've got Kalvin sat next to you, and you've got some more creative players like Mason Mount as well. Do you feel like you've bulked out in those kind of positions in the last 3 years?
Well, we were very early stages of developing the team, and the team.
I don't think I can hear you, Gareth. Actually, sorry. I don't know if anyone else can. I think the sound's gone off.
I think the Gareth's mic has been muted, guys. It says England Press Theatre muted.
There you go.
Is that better? Can you hear me now? Okay. I think we created a way of playing just ahead of that tournament that got the best out of the strengths of the group that we had, and of course we knew that Croatia at that time, Modric, Rakitic, Bedelj, Brozovic, their midfield is very strong. Obviously Kovacic at Chelsea now, so it is an area, it's I would say their strongest part of their team. Our midfield has definitely, more players have emerged. Kalvin has come into the side. Declan Rice has come into the group. The younger players, the slightly more attacking players that you mentioned have. Jude just starting to emerge. So, the future for our team, when you look at the age of all of those players, is really exciting. And it means that we can play in different ways. We've got the balance of the squad to play different systems, and our job again, as always, is to prepare the team for each opposition, find the best way of playing for each opponent, and we feel better equipped to cope with different sorts of tactical challenges as well.
And Kalvin, if I could just ask you, when you were introduced into the England squad last autumn, was your thought immediately just maybe surprised and being pleased that you were an England player, or did your mind turn straight to trying to make the squad for the European Championships, which you knew were coming up?
I think it was just to take every training session every day as it comes, try and do my best every day, and I think when it came to the games as well, just try and show what I can do, what difference I can make in certain areas, and I believe that I did that throughout the games, and obviously I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be involved in a major tournament like this, and obviously I'll keep trying my best throughout the tournament, and for as long as I can.
Thanks, Dom. And we'll finish with Anda from Telecom Sport.
Sorry, before I couldn't find the unmute button. I want to ask Gareth two questions, if it's okay. One is about Romania. Did you choose Romania because you are starting against Croatia and they have similar style? And if you expect to score tomorrow more than 3 goals, because Romania conceded 2 goals each game. And the second one is about your under-21 team. Your players lost 2 years ago against Romania. And I want to ask if you find an explanation for your tremendously progress they've made since then.
Well, in terms of the opposition, we wanted a contrast of styles. So Austria was a good opponent for us in the way they press. Very good at getting players between the lines, technically good. Romania have some outstanding individuals and good technical players. So a slightly different type of challenge, but we know that they're going to pose us a lot of questions that we might face in the summer. It wasn't specific for the game against Croatia because every nation and every team is slightly different, really. So with the with the under-21s, are you talking about our players or the Romanian players?
I'm talking about your players because they lost 2 years ago and they had a tremendous progress and our team didn't. And what your explanation, what they've done so good that they progressed so much and what we didn't do so good?
Well, I don't know about your team. In terms of our players, that tournament was a really important experience for a lot of them. I think the game with Romania especially, there were thousands of Romanian fans came across the border to watch, and I think it was a good pressurised experience for our young players. Some of them were at the end of a difficult season, and they had some difficult individual performances within that, but we knew that a lot of them were young, even in terms of the under-21s. A lot of them had the chance to play another cycle of under-21 football. They've benefited from great experiences with their clubs, and I think we've always felt it's important to put young players in, even though it might be a bit early in some occasions. We've been able to build that international experience for a lot of them, so some of them now have 10 caps or more at a very young age, and I think in the long term that will be really beneficial, and in the short term it means that they're already established with the rest of the team and they've got the respect of the group and they feel comfortable in the group and able to play at their best possible level.
Okay, that concludes this media conference, and thanks for joining us this afternoon.